Many fear the dark. The absence of light deprives us of the most important of our senses, sight, without which we remain disoriented, unable to distinguish anything around us, ignorant and helpless in the face of any threat that may dwell in the blackness. But sometimes, the most disturbing does not come from the darkness, but rather from the sparkles of the sun's rays on a clear day. Among the hubbub of fallacious information and insubstantial issues that the media overwhelms us daily, we can find stories and testimonies, ignored by the majority of people, that speak about the appearance and presence of some enigmatic and terrifying nameless entities that materialize under the most radiant light of the sun but whose substance seems to be of the same shadow. Among those who, with words still gripped by vivid fear, narrate these disturbing encounters with the entities that lurk in the light of the sun, there are surfers who have seen them on remote beaches, hikers and climbers to whom they have appeared in the stillness of the mountains, cyclists whom they seemed to follow along lonely paths and tracks, truckers whom they observed from the shoulders of deserted roads, and farmers who have seen them in their fields, among others. However, all the various testimonies agree that the entities that dwell among the rays of the sun always manifest themselves to people who at that time were alone, in deserted and secluded places, and in broad daylight, under a resplendent sun. And it is precisely on what could be the warmest and most beautiful day, under the most brilliant light of the sun, that the affliction begins. For, gradually and inadvertently, they say, the luminosity of the sun seems to be increasing, to the point of beginning to be annoying to the eyes, and while a growing and increasingly oppressive sensation of heat is felt, anguish and restlessness take over the being and the thought, as the sight begins to be invaded and overwhelmed by blinding flashes and disturbing visions. The world around seems to deform and blur under the suffocating luminescence, the colors and shapes of all things become mirages that make people doubt about their very reality and that stun the senses, making the very orientation and perception of space and time waver. And it is in the midst of this dreamlike and disturbing panorama when the shadowy and indistinct silhouettes of what, for the illusory relief, are thought to be people observing motionless in the distance begin to be distinguished, or to be believed to be distinguished. But there is no response when they are called, and if the unfortunate person, spurred by desperation and even a certain intrigue, tries to approach them, they end up vanishing as suddenly as they appeared, to his bewilderment and frustration. Until at some point the victim of these unrealities reaches the elusive figure, and then, to his dismay and horror, discovers that what he thought was an elusive fellow is actually something much more sinister, an enigmatic specter of darkness that it seems to gain substance in the glare of a light that is now blinding and that only looks back at him in silence. For the lucky ones, these visions cease after a few agonizing minutes, and the world and the sunlight eventually regain their normal appearance, and they can continue their journey trembling and perplexed. But it is known that there have been some people who have not been so lucky and have vanished into an inexplicable void. Nothing can be discerned about the fate of these unfortunates, since they leave no trace behind them, and any attempt to find them is fruitless. Many claim, however, that these unfortunate people have met an ill-fated end after an unspeakable suffering and a succession of disturbing visions, until among of their despair and anguish they have looked up one last time, to see in front of them, one last time, the entities we have been talking about. There are few people who can already doubt that all over the world, among the radiant rays of the sun, there lives something unknown that stalks the unwary in lonely places, in broad daylight, as if taking advantage of the trust and joy that come with warmth and luminosity of the sun in a clear sky, as more and more people have experienced one of these disturbing encounters, and there are also more and more inexplicable disappearances attributed to them. But the mystery still persists about what they are and the reason for their inscrutable acts, which has led to the most varied and crazy hypotheses, from the fact that they are spirits to beings from another dimension or another world, and that they use the radiance of the sun as a portal to materialize in front of us, and its unfortunate victims to maintain its existence in our reality or as simple food. Either way, the only certainty is that out there, in the solitude of pathways and beaches, mountains and roads, and in the luminosity and clarity of the most radiant day, unfathomable beings lurk in wait for the unwary, dwelling among the light of the sun.